In this episode of Man vs. Marriage, sexual terminology. Trigger words. Is there such a thing as trigger words when it comes to sex?
The podcast.
How good do you want your life to be?
It's really about becoming the best version of yourself that's possible.
This is Man vs. Marriage.
The podcast.
Welcome back to another episode of Man vs. Marriage. It is I, your humble servant, the Q-Dog, in the Moran family studio with my wife, Jeannie Moran. Honey, what's up?
What's up?
Hey, baby. All right, we're going to get into this episode. We don't really need to waste any time. We're going to jump right into this and talk more about sex. And this episode is about sexual terminology. And it's like, when I'm saying this, what do you hear me saying? And then if you say something, I shut down or immediately put up a wall and I don't hear what you have to say. So walk us through what we're going to get in this episode.
So the last episode, we told you guys to go figure out where your beliefs lie with sex and sexuality. You know, how you learned about it, what you knew about it, and what your spouse learned and how she feels about it, and the examples that you've had. Now, taking that into consideration, now I want you to look at your sexual biases. And some of you are probably thinking there's no sexual bias. I mean, it's sex. Wrong. What I mean is, let's say you hear the word sexuality. Now, there is a huge political agenda around this word, but that's not the term as we're using it. I'm not discussing it. Quincy's not discussing it as whether it's a partnership or men and men and women and women. We are talking about sexuality as a whole, your capability to have and enjoy sexual pleasure. That's what we're talking about. But if you hear that word and you automatically think of some stupid news channel or whatever it is that you heard in the agenda or the newest argument or the newest debate, you're not hearing what we're telling you. You're hearing that word and allowing it to take you out of the conversation. That can happen with your wife. So what we're talking about now is when you guys are talking about sex, do you get kind of a knee-jerk reaction when certain things are said, or maybe you get like a heavy guilty feeling like this is right or wrong? Do you get that gut check? Now, for some people, that's typical, especially if you're coming from a religious background or you've been inundated with, abuse or things of that nature. There are a lot of things that could trigger that. I understand that. But with your spouse, you don't want that because it creates a wedge. Every time, I'll use an example. Quincy and I talk about feedback. Okay, if you've listened to us, you've heard us say this before. Every time he says the word feedback, you probably hear in the background, I hate the word. It has a stigma to it for me because we went through a course, and every time someone said, I'm going to give you feedback, I would get so pissed because it was criticism. It was always
Every time
criticism.
one particular person
No,
said they wanted
there
to
was
give you
two.
feedback.
There was two.
Okay.
But anyway.
Well, I don't know about the second one. I know about the first one.
But it stuck. And every time someone said, can I give you feedback? My automatic response was, no, you can't.
Well, and I'm gonna second what you're talking about. We're talking about our zone of genius and expertise is in our marriage. We're a man and a woman. We're not bringing any other talk, discussion, or political agenda into this. That's what we're not doing. And also, when I say trigger word, it's like one of the words of the day that, this is not, I'm just not saying trigger word as in this sends you into an uproar or you need counseling when you hear this. Maybe you do. What I'm saying is it triggers a reaction or a response, an authentic response when it comes to sex in your marriage. So understand it is a play on words there, but specifically we're talking about something here where it's like, I want to do this, and automatically you're like, well, that's something I would never do. This is your internal talk. This is something I would never do. I was always taught this about it. I'm not even willing to go there. I won't discuss it. No, without having an open, honest dialogue with your spouse. So some of these things that you may say will trigger a response inside of you, but I'm not using trigger word as it's used socially to protect everybody from every thing in the world. So that's not where I'm going with it,
And
just to give you context.
Keep in mind, too, this is not just about what you say in response. Remember I said in the last episode, Quincy has a what the hell face? Your face will give you away. So, and that's what I want you to be mindful of. I want you to kind of examine things that are said and how you get that response of ew or whatever it is. I mean, think about it. You could have an ex, and whenever someone says the name, you may not say it out loud, but your face says something, and then your brain goes, bitch. It's true. I do it. You do it. We all have those moments.
Sure.
So just in the respect of your own marriage, your own sex life with your wife, I want you to be mindful of those things because you could potentially harm your spouse by your response and prevent them from saying something, prevent them from telling you something they need or something that interests them or something that maybe hurt them.
Mm-hmm.
They're just going to let it slide because they don't want to upset or offend or have an argument. This particular topic should not be an argument. This is one of those places I want you to go back before you have these conversations about your sex life and your expectation. Go back. Hard talks, soft place to land, how to be vulnerable. Re-listen to those because you need those tools in these conversations. They are very, very, very important because if you are not a soft place to land, she's not going to tell you. If she's not a soft place to land, you're not going to tell her.
Yeah.
If Quincy thought that I was going to shut him down on something, he wouldn't bring it to me. He really wouldn't. If he thought I was going to use it as ammunition, you have to think of it this way. When you tell someone, especially your wife, something that is, it puts you in a vulnerable place. It's something that, you've never told somebody else before. Maybe it's something you want to try. Maybe it's something you're going through. And you put yourself out vulnerably. You are giving that person power to hurt you.
Mm-hmm.
Or you are allowing yourself to become closer to that person by giving them that information and trusting them with it. That's the difference I'm talking about. So you need to know how to do those things without just coming in and saying, well, you won't even do this. Don't go there.
Yeah. Vulnerability, in my opinion, vulnerability is sacred above almost everything. Trust, honor, loyalty, vulnerability. Those are the jewels in the crown. Because if you're gonna say something and you're gonna take advantage of a moment where I've kind of given you something I'm afraid to talk about, and you're gonna wreck it, then the door's gonna close and the key's gonna lock and the handle is going to be removed.
You need to look at. I need to stop saying you need. Something to think about is if you don't understand why you get that knee-jerk reaction or why you have the response that you do, even if it's internally, you run the risk of accidentally or purposefully, depending on how you view it, hurting your spouse. And when it comes to your sex life, the most vulnerable aspect of your relationship, dude, hurting each other there, that's going to put some major cracks in the foundation.
It will. And when she's talking about, an automatic reaction, a knee-jerk response, it's like, I like to just dumb things down, and I think that's pretty dumbed down well enough, but I'm just going to say it's like having an auto-respond or an out-of-office reply. You're sending the message, and automatically you get something back, which is your opinion, the opinion you've created about said topic. We all have those biases that we've created. All of us. I know they're there for me. They have been with Jeannie. And sometimes you create that bias based on the topic without even realizing it. And she had that with me because I came from such a deeply held religious background. So do less thinking for your spouse and allow them to tell you what's on their mind as you cultivate these conversations, because these are not something that you can necessarily jump right into. If it works that way, then that's fantastic. Run with it.
Well, and consider this. Your beliefs are what they are because they're what you were taught, so you've ingrained them in yourself. But your beliefs are only your beliefs until somebody confronts it. And if they confront it with something that makes you question, your beliefs aren't your beliefs anymore, because now you're questioning, why do I feel that way?
Yeah.
Why do I? Is it right? Is this really what's right for me?
Mm-hmm.
And then you have to open your own mind. So the reason I'm saying this is there's this, there's a book that you can get. It's called Tongue Tied by Stella Harris. She actually works with couples. She works with, it's an adult store in Oregon. She works with classes and helps people experiment or learn about their sexuality, kink, introducing toys into your marriage and into your bedroom. I will tell you, her relationship, she's bi, so her relationship and her views are very different, and it's very open to all spectrums. So if you get the book and you read it, you have to have an open mind. And I'm not saying you have to accept everything she says as gold. I'm saying read it with an open mind and only take what pertains to you.
Yeah.
Okay. But that being said, she gives the example of false beliefs. Like, she used the example whenever someone discusses anal play, men and her particular area of work, it is an automatic. If a guy talks about butt play, it's you're gay. It's a gay action. This is not happening. Okay. Well, if you listen to Kim Amani, your rear end is actually connected to a lot of stuff that you hold stress and a lot of endorphins that you can release in your brain. Now, am I telling you to go out and have your wife shove a butt plug up your butt? No, I'm not. Just hear me out for a second. Don't shut out and tune out. What I'm saying is, what if your wife came to you and said this is something she's interested in? As soon as you hear anal play and you go into that spot of this is a gay action or this is not something for me, you're shutting her off when maybe she listened to Kim Amani and realized this is something I want to try because I carry a lot of stress and I carry a lot of anxiety, and this is something that a true sexual therapist said could be beneficial to me. Are you going to rob her of listening to find out why she's interested in this? Maybe it's not because she wants to get off on it. Maybe it's because she just has a physical need to be met.
Yeah.
Now she wants to bring you into meeting that physical need. If you can meet that physical need and bring it into your sex life, you've just enhanced both sides of the world for both of you. So what I'm saying is, don't allow your old thoughts to keep you from learning something new and hearing what your spouse has to say. You know, it might be you. Maybe you want her to sit down and watch something with you, and for her, it's porn. I don't want to watch it. It's porn. Okay, maybe it is. But if there's something in it that you see that you want your wife to look at with you, I'm not saying that we're all going to say yes. But as a wife, if Quincy came to me and said, I want you to watch this with me, and I want to hear what you think about this particular act, I would watch it with him because it's an interest to him, and something about it is talking to you. Something about it has an interest. Okay, we watch it and we decide, what do you think? Does that look like something that we would be interested in? Does that look like something we could try? It's simply opening up communication a little bit further. Am I saying go out and tell your wife, let's watch porn? No, I'm not. So don't you dare go tell your wife that I said it, because I'll deny it. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is be open to just about anything in a conversation about sex with your wife. Do not shut it down.
Guys, how would you like the opportunity to have a Zoom meeting with me, the Q-Dog, and my wife, Jeannie? That's right, a 30-minute Zoom meeting you can have if you go over to Manvsmarriagepodcast.com, become a subscriber. That will enter your name in for a chance to win this exciting contest. Now listen, if you got a homeboy who listens, or maybe he doesn't listen, send him over to manvsmarriagepodcast.com, have him become a subscriber, and that will enter him to win. Then he sends me an email at coach at manvsmarriagepodcast.com. And guess what? That will enter you another time. There is no limit to how many times you can be entered, so go there now to manvsmarriagepodcast.com. Become a subscriber. Have your friends do the same and alert me via email. And you could win the MVSM meet and greet via Zoom with Quincy and Jeannie from Man vs. Marriage, the podcast. That's right. I'll see you there. Go get it done. Don't be a slacker. Get to work. Q-Dog is out. Yeah, and she's talking about that, and I have some pretty deeply held beliefs about porn and why I don't watch it. That comes from multiple conversations with men that have watched so much porn that they can't even get off anymore. So for me, I tread lightly around that area. But that's a personal thing for me. If Jeannie comes to me and says, I want to watch this, I would probably say, okay. I would probably say, okay, I'll watch this with you. I mean, Game of Thrones. Let's take Game of Thrones just as an example. I was watching that with Jeannie because I had heard it was good. I hadn't watched it. And, I mean, in the first episode, he is banging Khaleesi. And I was like, I'm not watching this with my wife, so I shut it down, because I was like, I'm not doing this. This is not what I'm gonna watch because I don't want to get. I've always said porn is like napalm. Once it burns, it can wreck you as a man. That's just where I stand on it. But since the sex talk has opened up for us, it's something that I would consider. I don't know if I would sit there and just be beat red in the face and what it would be. I know when the sex scenes come on in Game of Thrones,
we talk. We turn away from the TV and we talk.
I look up, I'm watching through it again because there was some other stuff coming out, but so now I can just fast forward through the stuff because I know what's going to happen. But if the audio is important, to, so to speak, part of the storyline, I just ever so gently raise my eyes to the corner of the room because that's just not something that I want to watch.
You don't want the image in your head when you're having sex with me.
Yeah,
that's what it amounts to. That's how Quincy views it, and I respect that. So it's not something that I would tell him, hey, you want to watch this with me? I know that's a line that would be crossed. But what I'm saying is, for listeners, you all have a different sex life than we do. You have a different belief system than we do. Some of you are the same. Some of you are not. And it's okay because it is your marriage, your bedroom. But I'm looking at, like, we'll use the example, the word kink. People hear kink, and it's really, really common in a certain age group of women. And I'm not going to give specifics because I don't want to get anybody on me because they would know who I was talking about. But it is really, really common for people to hear kink and think BDSM, bondage, and abuse are all one big thing. They are so not the same thing.
I thought when you mentioned the word kink, I thought you were talking about kinky, like, ooh, that's a little dirty. There's something called kink?
Okay, so kink it's a range of activities from spanking to bondage to other various fetishes. People like to dress up a certain way. Some people do like whipping and spanking and crops and things of that nature. There is a sadistic side to this if you go further down the rabbit hole. That's not my area of expertise, nor is it something that I will discuss with anybody. But it's not just that. And there is a stigma on the word kink and the BDSM lifestyle. People have a tendency to think you want to beat women and she wants to be beaten. And that's all it is. It is not. It is not. But that's the majority of how people see it. Now, there's a whole other side to this. If you ever get into your wife's romance novels, I'm telling you, there's a whole other side to this.
So when you're saying that there are people who have an opinion, a fixed opinion about this, it's women within some of the groups that you run.
Yeah, there are some those of us who are like-minded usually tend to shut them down in the conversation, but because it is coming from an old school mentality, and there is a lot of feminist movement that would argue, because in some of these relationships, now not all kink, so to speak, flies under the BDSM radar. BDSM is its own thing, but there are people who don't understand that there are couples who want to have a dominant and a submissive. It is what it is. In the bedroom, he's in control of everything. She just has to do and obey and take. And 90% of it is him giving her pleasure. This is why it's so popular with a lot of people, because the women get to give over, or whoever the submissive is gets to give over control and not worry about performance, not worry about whether they get it right, not worry about what they wear. They are told everything.
Okay.
And it puts them in a headspace of, I don't have to worry. I don't have to think about this because the other person is in control. There are women who argue this and get pissy about it because you're letting a man control you. Okay. But this is their relationship and it's their thing.
Right.
My point is, when you hear the word kink, yes, for you and I, yes, it's, that's kind of kinky, it's kind of naughty. That's how it works for us. Other people hear it and they automatically take it to a different place. Another one is when people talk about sex toys. A lot of stigma around sex toys, which is so stupid. There is a lot of belief that when someone says they want to bring in a vibrator or a sex toy or some other object into their sex life, it's going to ruin the real sex.
Well, I mean, you're being a bit brash about it. I don't know that it's stupid. I mean, we've learned some stuff, so we're farther along on that side than some of the audience. But it's from coming from where I came from, when you have some insecurities or whatever, you don't want to be replaced by an object, not understanding that you have no desire to replace me. Toys can be an option for relationships, and it has little to nothing to do, at least it did for us, about replacing your spouse. There are just other things that can be done. So whenever, this is a good one to talk about, because whenever I first heard about toys, I was like, oh, heck, no way. Why are you talking to her about that? Why do you care? Our sex life is good. These are all things I'm pushing back on. Mm-hmm. And when it came down to it, there was an underlying insecurity for me that was being combative. It was the thing that was combating any idea of what this might look like. And when I admitted that out loud, all of a sudden I'm open to say, okay, well, tell me more about it. And then, oh, look, here's just another way that I can get you.
But see, and that's my point. I'm not
Right.
I don't mean to be brash about it. I'm not trying to slam anybody for this, but I'm saying these are the thought processes or the biases that some people have in their head. So when you hear these things, there's a why. You need to know why your spouse is talking about these things. If I'm coming to you and I'm saying, I read this novel and it's talking about this act that they did, and I'm thinking, how is that even possible? Like, how would that work? I'm asking you because you and I could probably try that and you could prove to me how that works. And if it does work and it's anything like what I just read, I'm going to be one really happy camper. But if I come to you and say I'm reading this and it was kind of a turn on and it frustrates you because something I read turned me on, rather than engaging in, well, why? Is this something you want to try? Should we figure it out? And you just shut down because I'm telling you something turned me on and it wasn't you, that's going to put a wall there, So it's not about slamming you or slamming anybody for how they see these things. It's simply, these are some of the thoughts or these are some of the stigmas that come along with these words or these different areas in sex. And all I'm asking you to do is not put up that wall right away. Ask questions.
Yeah.
This is where you're going to completely win in this conversation is ask questions. When you bring it out and it's an expectation conversation, or it's a talking about toys, or talking about introducing something new, or trying a different position, getting a Karma Sutra book. I don't know what you're into, but if you leave those biases at the door and you walk in with the ability to say, I'm going to let you be you and I'm going to be me. I'm not going to judge what you're saying. I'm not going to hold it against you. I'm not going to throw it back at you like, what the hell are you talking about? I'm going to let you be you and explain to me, this is what I'm thinking. And I want to know where you're at with this. I don't know if it's something I want to try. Quincy and I, most of our conversations start with, it intrigues me. I'm not sure if I want to go there, but it does intrigue me.
I think that is code word for I want to do this. I just don't know at what pace I want to accomplish the action.
Yes and no. I'm not going to lie to you. I am a reference person. If there is something that we can do to make this better, I will go buy the book. If I bought books on how to give a better blowjob. Why? Because if there is a way to blow your mind, no pun intended, and change it up for you,
I'll take that pun.
I want to know.
Well, yeah, it's like anything, right? It's like when you're in the gym, if you want bigger biceps or better shoulders, so you've worked on your shoulders for 10 years. But if there's other techniques that are going to give you the bulk or the definition that you want, you learn, you practice, you refine your skills. That's what you do. And sex is no different. I mean, that's a man versus marriage philosophy. Get better at what you do. Be the best version of yourself possible.
And let's be real. If you're you have to practice. I mean, y'all, if you're trying to ramp up your sex per week, I'm just saying that's a good way to go. We need to practice this.
Here's something I thought about when you were talking. I agree. We got to practice.
Practice makes perfect. Quincy is very adamant about this.
Yeah. You may have some kind of stigma. Let's say when we go to a hotel room, maybe you're caught up with the idea that sex can only happen on the bed. You go to a hotel. Jeannie and I go to a hotel, and we're sizing up the chair.
Hey, y'all got maids, man. I'm taking every surface I can.
Yeah, it's like the chair, the chase, the couch, maybe that table over there. I mean, we're open to the idea because we have some pretty great happenings that we're in a chair. And it's like, it's a moment of opportunity. She runs with whatever the thought is, and it's like, oh my gosh, that was freaking amazing. So now you go to the hotel, and it's like, okay, we're sizing up.
Where are we going?
It's like, okay, I remember how good it was on that particular type of furniture, so let's do this. But if you're triggered with sex only happens on the bed, you don't know what you could be missing out on if you don't open your mind for simply having the discussion. Maybe you are at the point where it's like, okay, well, let's talk about this. At the end of the conversation, maybe you've solidified what your belief is. Or maybe you've opened your mind to grow a little bit.
Well, maybe you try it. And then you make up your mind on whether or not this is what you believe in. Because you might think that there are multiple types of toys, and you might think, looking at it, this is not for me. Maybe it's not for you. Maybe it's for her.
Right.
And you're shutting it down because it's not for you. But what if it's for her? Or what if you just try something and it puts her in a whole other world? You did that. That was you giving to your wife. There's a lot of ways to look at this, guys. And the whole point is, you have to be willing to allow your spouse to be vulnerable. You have to be willing to be vulnerable. Maybe there's something you want to do. A lot of this conversation is one-sided on my side, because I'm telling you as a wife, these are things that I struggle with telling my husband of 22 years. I want to do this, but I just don't know where you're at with this. And I'm not really sure if I'm totally ready to commit to this yet, but it intrigues me. What do you think? It's taken us this long to get to that point of a conversation. And if you're hopefully listening to this and you're a little further behind than us, dude, you're ahead of the game. But that's the point. If you're willing to at least be open to the conversation, do not take anybody else's opinion, anything else you've been taught or learned, and walk into it with the idea, I'm going to listen. I'm going to learn with you. I'm going to grow with you. I'm going to experience with you and nobody else. That to me is sacred ground. That to me is that builds your intimacy big time, because that is the most vulnerable place that either of you is in that relationship. And if you can build on that intimacy, if you're willing to learn something with me and you're willing to experience something with me, and it's a phenomenal experience, how much more does that impact us in our intimacy level? How much more do we feed off of doing something for our spouse and knowing I did that?
Yeah. And that's part of the thing that drives me is I love the intimate connection, but I also love giving you multiple orgasms.
You like the attaboys of knowing you did that.
Yeah, it just
I made that face.
it is a pleasure to me. It's very self-gratifying when I please you. And some of these things may not have worked out if we didn't have some of these conversations. And,
or epic fails.
You know, that's true. And that's one thing I want to make clear as we wrap this up. It's like, if you're going into it with an open mind, it's like try it more than once.
Yeah.
You know, I have a fear of this episode, and the fear is this: I don't want you to say, look, I've always wanted another chick in the bedroom with me and my wife, and how can I figure this out? If that's if you and your wife are open to that, then so be it. But don't use this episode for manipulating your relationship.
No.
I don't want this to go there. Jeannie and I are just, we're monogamy junkies. It's just us. So we're talking about positions, toys, the Liberator, those
fantasies,
those kinds of things. That's what we're talking about. So, don't jump on any other idea where, look, Quincy and Jeannie are saying, if it's something I want to try, we can bring, 10 or 12 other women in the room.
No.
That's not where we're going with it.
I did not okay a harem. I did not.
That's just my disclaimer, because sometimes I get worried about that. Now, I'm not saying that's our audience, because our audience is different, But if that is you discuss that with your wife, it's something you all agree on, you are responsible for your relationship. That we don't go there. But as for the other things we're talking about, did we cover a whole lot of words, or are there other words that we need to sneak in here real quick?
No, they're not necessarily other words, but there are other things we can cover, but we'll keep going.
Okay. Well,
like we said, it's a series, so
it is.
You want more, you're going to have to keep listening.
I know it's important. It's an important part of your relationship. I know that. Why? Because it was an important part of ours. And just as an example, I don't know how many thousands of miles away Dan Purcell lives from me, but he went through some of the same struggles that our marriage went through in his own marriage. So that tells me that it's very likely that you're going through some of these struggles. And just as a construct or a framework, you can look at these situations and see that these types of conversations, etc., will help you. So get on to getting on, and understand that there may be some biases and some sexual trigger words that are kind of holding you back, and maybe you need to open your mind and have that conversation with your wife.
There might be some for her too.
Oh, yeah. I could almost freaking guarantee they're there.
Oh, yeah.
You know what? I'm just going to guarantee they're there. So work through it. And you got a lesson on sexual terminology. All right? Yeah. Well, anything else from you, honey?
Not on this one.
All right. She's Jeannie Moran. I am the Q Diggity Dog, a.k.a. Quincy Moran. And this is Man vs. Marriage.
The podcast. How good do you want your life to be?
You gotta live on purpose, for a purpose.
It's truly about becoming the best version of yourself that's possible. This is Man vs. Married, the podcast.